Hi everyone. So today I'm going to discuss the book review that I did for Tima Kurdi's novel, The Boy on the Beach. And I did this review for an assignment that was part of one of my university courses. And today I'm going to be going over the written assignment that I did and discuss my written book review. So here goes. Introduction and short summary. The novel is about Tima Kurdi, and her family. They were all born in Syria. Her relatives have witnessed atrocities being committed in their homeland during the Syrian war, and they have tried desperately to find a safe haven to escape from all of the brutality. Fatima tells the story of their experiences in trying to find safety for their families amid the chaos. Fatima was fortunate because she immigrated to Canada in 1992 and she did not experience this brutality directly. She has experienced this through the accounts of her siblings. She explains everything with tremendous openness and truthfulness. She wants to speak for those who cannot, and she wants their story told. Her relatives experience the life of a refugee and know the negative repercussions associated with this label. They know what it is like to leave quickly with their children and take no material possessions. They have no passports. They cross borders illegally with very little money, and they go forward into the unknown, and they're unsure of what the future holds for them. They experience this all at the same time with the danger of being killed at any moment by rebel soldiers, um, ISIS, um, 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 you know, they have government soldiers, rebels, ISIS, and 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 the like. Um, Being a refugee, they have to travel hungry, dehydrated, um, without rest. They endure physical pain, and they are totally at the mercy of the new country's government and citizens. They hope for a better life for themselves and for their children, and that is all they have, including the love that they hold for each other. This is the only thing that can sustain them through this very difficult period that they have to endure. This book tells their own individual stories about their experiences. Through this narrative, we see the condition of humanity and how we are all interconnected. The reader feels their pain and at times cannot comprehend the evil that they experience, but knows we must do whatever we can to help refugees throughout the world today and in the future. This problem must be corrected. Author's thesis. Tima Kurdi is the author of The Boy on the Beach, and she repeats her thesis several times throughout this book. She defines it clearly when she makes her speech to the United Nations. She asks the world leaders and politicians listening to her speech to open their hearts and doors and see the refugees as people just like themselves, and at the bare minimum provide safe passage so that no one is harmed and dies in their journey toward finding a safe place to live. She asks them to please keep their borders open as long as there is war. It is very important to her that the Syrian war ends. She asks these important politicians to sit down with each other in one place and communicate their thoughts and ideas on working toward a peaceful solution to help end the Syrian war. She wants the reader to recognize and understand the plight of all refugees and to see them in the same way we see ourselves. She wants the world to take action, stop ignoring the issue, and do whatever we can to help them. Basically, she wants to use her voice to help end the Syrian war and help refugees everywhere. And no one chooses to be a refugee, and and the reader has to realize that it could be them one day. The reader feels their pain, and at times they cannot comprehend the evil that they experience. Assumptions of the author. So, on one of her trips to see her father, Tima's father, she stated, "I began to see the world through a refugee's eyes." Now, that statement is very important because she is no longer a concerned citizen at that point. She now understands the plight of a refugee as if she has directly experienced it herself. She sees things the way they would see it, and that is very difficult to do, This provides her with more insight on how to help them and what needs to be done to correct the situation. She mentions being a refugee sometimes feels like a ghost among the living. If people could walk in their shoes and experience what they do, they would be very scared. When she spoke to her father, she gained insight on refugees and saw that their lives were very brutal, just like the lives of people who live in war zones. This insight is affecting Tima's view of the urgency of the problems that affect refugees. The more people know and become aware of these massive inhumane problems that exist in our world today, the faster we can find solutions and we can bring forward those solutions to correct them. Tima does not blame the citizens of Turkey or any other country for the problems relatives have experienced in being refugees in these countries. She states that the citizens did not create the restrictive laws dealing with refugees, and they experience negative repercussions due to the large influx of people needing help and employment. It is a burden on the country's strained resources, and the Turkish citizens would also suffer. She also mentions the kindness relatives did experience from ordinary Turkish people. This has affected her view on what needs to be done and how it should be handled. It needs to be dealt with at the political level, but in order to make changes, ordinary citizens need to understand the situation, and politicians need to understand the issues completely because they're the ones who hold the power to make the changes. This is why it is so important that the war ends and the politicians hold that power. Now, my recommendation for the book. It is very important that politicians and world leaders read this book because they need to understand the issues completely and from the point of view of a refugee and the great injustices that are occurring in our world today. Tima provides all of this in her book. She's speaking for those who cannot speak because they are dead. They might be severely traumatized or they have no means to even be heard. She represents the silent victims. Politicians and world leaders have families and relatives, so they should be able to make the connection that it could be them. So let's try and correct this so that no one falls into the category of refugee by stopping wars and rescuing displaced people. It is important for schools to have this book in their high school curriculum so that teenagers will develop a sense of responsibility toward people in other countries. It is important that they see how interconnected the world is and that they must get a sense of social justice and what is morally right in our world. They need to understand basic human rights and the legislation that goes with it. Some students may not have the opportunity to go to college or university. So I think a book like this should really be introduced at the high school level. University students should also be required to read this book, and because of their higher level of education, they should analyze it on a deeper level for their courses, like I did for one of my university courses. And it is important that teachers in all schools read this book so they understand some of the terrible experiences that students in their classroom may have experienced in their lives. It is also important that the teacher brings all the different cultures into his or her classroom lessons, and they help integrate students from different countries and especially students who have a refugee background, and they help celebrate their heritage and diversity, and this will help students with different cultures to feel accepted and valued and included. The teachers will develop a deeper understanding for the parents of the newcomer families as well. This will help each side communicate more effectively and to resolve any issues that develop in a positive manner. So my overall opinion of the book, I think this book is a very captivating story. Once I started to read it, I had to continue reading it until I finished this book and got to the very end. It is not like any other book that I have ever read before. I wanted to rescue the people in this book. I felt so sad knowing that that this takes place in our world today, and there's not much that I could really do about it. Like, I felt a great deal of empathy for all of the people in this book. I thought about what it would be like to be them and be in their situation, and I could not even really understand or understand how they managed to get through. I cannot comprehend how any person, whether they're a senior, adult, child, infant, should be expected to endure that. No one should have to experience that ever. It is morally unacceptable and appalling to subject any person in our world to that nightmare. This book should be made a priority to be read by all citizens in any country in the world. Our politicians should open the doors of our country and allow for these displaced people to come here and live in the safety of our country. The government should help organize the safe passage to our country to ensure that no harm comes to them. Canadian citizens should be encouraged to be helpful, kind, and tolerant toward the refugees and help them integrate into Canadian society. Canadian citizens should be encouraged to read this book so that they have a greater understanding of what's happening. Other countries should be encouraged to open their borders and allow these people to integrate into their society successfully too. I really had no expectations from this book as I had never heard about it before I was asked to do this for my assignment. I wanted to understand what the title meant. When I first opened the book, I looked at all of the pictures in the book, and the very last picture in this book shows Tima's nephew, Alan Kurdi, and it's the it's this famous photo of him on a beach, and he's at this point he's dead. He's dead on the shore, and this is the photo that caught international attention, and 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 I wanted to understand really how he ended up there and how and how it could take place, and her book it it helped it answered my questions, and it taught me so much more that I did not truly understand until Tima Kurdi explained what happened to her relatives and how they ended up being refugees. She taught me what it means to be a refugee, and I think a lot about it. I believe it is a great book because this book will teach people to show kindness to refugees, immigrants, and all people in the world. And that is the end of my book review. I hope you found this review I did to be interesting. To be I hope I have provided a lot of insight into this book and why I believe it's a very important book that should be read by all people. Um, I find this book to be very thought-provoking, and if you've never heard about this book or Tima Kurdi or the story of her and her family, I would highly recommend that you check it out, and that you get a copy of this book and read it for yourself, and you will not be disappointed. It's this book is an excellent read, and it sheds so much like light on this on issues happening in our world today, especially with refugees and immigration and conflicts in other countries, and 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 yeah, so overall I believe this book is very, very important, and I hope you all I hope you all get a copy for yourself someday to read. So so that's the end of my book review, and 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 so bye for now, and I hope I hope to do um I hope to do another book review soon as well. Take care, everyone.